Gustav, is it possible still to register as an expert for the next upcoming call? Yeah.
And it's possible to register whenever you want. You could just go to the participant portal again, and there is a part there where it says experts. You can register there. You put in your details and your personal profile, and then you're in our database. So we do use it, and we use it for all our evaluations. So it's really good if you can use it. I think we have about 50,000 people already registered. So yes, please, whenever you can, please do so, because we do need them. The only thing is, obviously, if you're submitting a proposal into the same call, we will obviously not consider you in that time. Thank you.
Thanks. That's probably a very useful experience to take part in. Also very useful are always the advice from Dr. Katrin Danerlöv. She's the national contact point, and she will sum up this day by giving her practical tips and tricks. Dr. Danerlöv has a background from surface chemistry and worked for several years as project manager at Research Institute before she joined VINNOVA as national contact point. So there you go, Katrin.
Okay, thank you, Judith. In this talk, I will give you an overview of the application process. We will look a little bit further into the evaluation criteria that you already have seen now. I will go through some of the reasons why proposals fail, and moreover, I will try to reflect on what it takes to write the winning proposals. And we have had some good feedback already on these issues. And most of what I will say is quite general for at least the second and the third priority in Horizon 2020, as for the industrial leadership as well as for the societal challenges. What about sort of the submission process? Well, most of you know that the applications for call topics in Horizon 2020, they need to be submitted electronically in this participant portal. Here is also the place where you find all the information about the calls. You download the application template. You as well submit your application. And this is as well the place where you sort of manage your projects, the accepted projects during their lifetime. And here as well, you can sign up for your interest for becoming an expert evaluator of proposals. A little bit about the application. I'm sure many of you know that there are two parts. The first part is called Part A of the proposal. This is more administrative forms, like data on participating organizations, budget, ethical issues, etc. What I will talk about is the project description, and this is Part B. I really would like to point out as well that the relevant template you get from the submission system going into the topic you want to apply for, because the templates can differ. So this is really important to have in mind. What are the proposals evaluated on? We have seen the three main criteria. I should say that this is for the collaborative projects. The collaborative projects, the research and innovation actions, as well as the innovation actions. And Gustav wanted me sort of to highlight that there is a minimum criteria here. You need to be 3 independent organizations from at least 3 different member states or associated states. But as you saw from these project examples, several of these projects, they have a much higher number of participating organizations. The template for the proposal is structured in the same way, having these 3 sections. And for some of the themes in Horizon 2020, you have 2-stage calls, like for the NMB-P theme. And for the ones who apply the 2-stage format, for the first stage, you only address the first 2 criteria here. But this you find sort of in the templates. So we will look into the criteria a little bit more in detail. You saw a condensed version from Gustav's presentation. So the first criteria, the excellence criteria, this is really about clarity of the objectives. This is about soundness of the concept. The proposed work needs to be beyond state of the art. It has to show an innovation potential. I think Gustav talked about business potential, but I think innovation potential is sort of the relevant word here. It is defined. It could be groundbreaking objectives, novel concepts, or it could be like new products, services, or business, for example. So you see that there is as well innovation in this first criteria. And the final part, this is really about appropriate consideration of interdisciplinary approaches, if that is relevant. So going to the second criteria, the impact criteria, I should have said that the evaluation criteria has changed slightly for the 2016 and 2017 work program as compared to the 2014 and 2015 calls. But I think here here you find most of the differences. Personally, I think this criteria has been more streamlined. It's much more easy to understand. You have been going from 5 sub-criteria to essentially 3 criteria. So what is this really about? Well, first of all, what is listed is how the project contributes to each of the expected impacts. And we've heard a lot about that already. And it says how it contributes to the impacts mentioned in the work program under the relevant topic. But if you look at the second point here, there is also phrasing any substantial impacts not mentioned in the work program that would enhance innovation capacity. And here you as well have a definition of what innovation capacity is. But it can be new market opportunities, growth of companies, or any other important benefits then to society. And the third sub-criteria, this is not only about how the project will be exploited and disseminated, but also how it will be communicated. And I think Gustav talked a lot about this, the importance of having a good communication plan. The third criteria, this is about the work plan, the appropriateness of the management structures, complementarity of the partners, also that the consortium as a whole brings necessary expertise together, and as well as the appropriateness of the allocation of tasks. And here you as well have one point about innovation management. You might wonder, what is that? Well, this is essentially sort of how you bring your ideas closer to market. So here the evaluator really has to judge how this is sort of assigned. How will you sort of deal with innovation management? Have you identified any sort of concrete tools? How does the process work then? Well, this is sort of an overview. I will not really dig into the details here, but the main message is, as we already heard, it can be between 3 to 5 evaluators which are assigned to each proposal, depending on the proposal nature and the call type. A quite common misunderstanding here is that it is commission staff or even people from VINNOVA that are evaluating the proposal. But I hope that you got this message that it can be people here like you. So please consider, I mean, if you're in this field and you will not apply for a call topic, a very good way of learning how this works is to read sort of good and bad applications. So when you're sort of submitting a proposal, everything is really about making the evaluator happy. Like last minute panic writing most often results in quite bad overall quality. And we heard, for example, from Connie that I mean, there were really some intense discussions before they submitted the project proposal. And this list can be quite simple, but still a number of people do these mistakes. I mean, for example, don't cram pages. It's really annoying for the reader if you can't read the details in the graphics, or if you have like a very poor layout. But most important is, of course, that you are very clear in presenting what the project is about, why this project is unique, why it is special, and why it is motivated. Really try to give the big picture. Do not be sort of too detailed and too technical. Write simple, logical, easy to understand. Avoid empty phrases. And do not either, I mean, repeat part of, in particular, the call text. If you do that, it can be good to do it. Make it sort of personalize the call text so that it sort of makes sense with your project. I mean, you really have to have make it unique for your project. And then I've also listed avoid too much policy speak cliches. It is important to connect to all visionary political sort of goals, but include sort of the necessary policy background, goes really straight to the details and to the important points which are relevant for your project. So why do proposals fail? This slide lists some of the reasons. I would say that one of the most common reasons is that the proposal or the underlying idea is not mature enough, or the proposal itself is not worked through. And quite often as well, I mean, the underlying idea is not innovative enough. Looking back at, for example, the excellence criteria, this has to do with that the proposed work is not groundbreaking, there are no new concepts, or it's not judged to be beyond state of the art. Moreover, it could be lack of skills. It can be quite obvious that the partnership is not covering the skills needed. And the type of analysis that Per-Erik is mentioning is very good to perform. It happens quite often that there is a lack of industrial partners or a lack of partners that really can realize the expected impacts which are listed in the topic. It can as well be lack of consistency in what is stated in the proposal. And I think Per-Erik mentioned that as well. If you, for example, outline the objectives in the excellence part, that needs to be followed by adequate activities described both in the impact as well as the implementation part. The proposal can also lack a clear exploitation and dissemination strategy. There can be sort of lack of precision in the information provided. And I guess this list can sort of be extended to include a number of different reasons. But the last point here is that it can be too ambitious. And then it goes back sort of to, for example, the excellence criteria, that it's not credible. So do not try to sort of grasp everything that you can think of. So this is the feedback from the Commission on why NMB-P proposals have failed in their first NMB-P calls in Horizon 2020. So here we list some frequent weaknesses. Regarding impact, this we've touched upon as well. Quite often researchers tend to present ideas that do not have a strong industrial commitment. We saw, for example, the project, which BASF coordinated. It was brilliant with a lot of industrial interest. So it has really to be a technology pull rather than just technology push. And there as well need to be a clear motivation to exploit the results. Next point is mismatch of technology readiness levels. And then I guess basically the proposals do not target what is written in the topic, or it's not sort of credible that they will target the sort of target technology readiness level given in the topic. One common mistake as well, I think, is that you try to recycle an old proposal. I mean, for some cases you could do that, but I think in most cases you sort of underestimate the time it takes to sort of rewrite the proposal so it actually fits into the topic. So think carefully when you're sort of resubmitting ideas. It's almost like writing the text again, even though you save some time because you probably have the partners. Next point is consortium composition. This is already touched upon, but often the project proposal lacks skills or competences, and it could often be that the industrial commitment is lacking. And the final point here is budget. And one example here is that Switzerland is not eligible for funding in the Pillar 2 and 3, or not eligible for funding from EU, but so far, if you have a Swiss partner in the project, they have received funding from the Swiss government. But Swiss partners, I mean, they can be included, but it's just a matter of technicality in the budgeting. And for Pillar 1, they are eligible. So what do winning proposals have in common? We have heard some nice examples here today. They are well worked through. They do really present an original idea, which is fully in line sort of with the scope of the topic. Statements are backed with facts and figure. They have a complementary partnership, where sort of each organization has a clear and defined role. The partnership also have a good balance between academia and industry. I think most important is as well that the industrial partners have a clear role, and they are sort of fully integrated in the project. Most often, industry could be work package leaders, as you saw in the projects example. Moreover, winning proposal really present well-articulated and preferably measurable objectives. And also winning proposals more or less fully address the impacts which are listed in the call. And then the expected impacts are often quite specific as well as quantified. So this list continues. What I think is very important, and Per-Erik also mentioned, and we've said it previously, is that the proposal is coherent, and in particular that the implementation section is consistent with the two other sections. So check deliverables, check objectives, and compare them to what you've written in the different parts. And winning proposals also show a convincing plan for dissemination, or disseminating the results to society, potential benefit of the results for society. They also have a convincing plan for exploitation as well as communication. They have a clear and logical work plan. And what is quite important as well is that you have a sound risk assessment. I mean, these could be really risky projects. So if you have sort of any issues or possible weaknesses, it's good if you put them on board and you describe them in the proposal. And finally, there's a judgment that the proposal is reasonably priced. So you've already seen two examples on the successful projects. What should you do to succeed? Well, it is obviously always a benefit if you start very early. You need really quite early to form a clear vision of what the project is about, what it will achieve, and how. Really make sure that it is in line with the topic. We've said that a number of times now during the day. And here you can get help both from grants offices, for example, at universities, and people from VINNOVA and the other agencies, or the people who are national contact points. And you already saw this brochure, so you know who to contact. You need to structure the project, and you need as well, I mean, we appreciate if you contact us early, so you need to contact support function as early as possible, and as well assign a couple of critical reviewers, and Gustav mentioned that as well. Do not wait sort of until last minute for admin tasks, and see to it that you're sort of acquainted with the participant portal. And my piece of advice is really that you make a detailed plan for the proposal. We talked about it, that it's good to allow plenty of time for critical review of the draft of the proposal. And I recommend that you use these so-called self-evaluation forms. And these are essentially the same questions as the expert evaluators will get. And I can assure you, by doing this sort of pre-proposal checks, the quality of your proposal will improve dramatically. So I would like to wrap up with some overall recommendations. We have seen that the competition for EU funding has become sort of tougher, and this really means that you need to ensure that your idea matches the topic. You need to have the conformance to the scope and the expected impact. Gustav talked about a key feature about this program is value chains. We as well saw that in one of the examples here. So look at the sort of value chain in your proposal. Make sure that you do not miss or lack any important player. There is as well a strong focus on developing technologies that can be used in different sectors in order to achieve sort of a greater impact of the results. But what that sort of implies is that there's a lot of competences that are needed upon evaluation. So really try to give the big picture or show a holistic view of the project when you're writing. Another piece of advice is to look carefully at the balance between industrial and research partners. And once more, there needs to be an evidence of sort of real industrial interest and a strong commitment to exploitation of results. And we talked about previously, but it's just a reminder that within this program, you most often need to include an outline of a business plan already in the proposal. So this is actually my last slide. So, but it's really important not really to have a brilliant idea that matches the goal or the topic, but you, I mean, really need to build a competitive team. And it's not only about the names of the organizations, but also the persons you involve. You've heard this already. You need to be aware of relevant roadmaps, policy documents. I also recommend you that you should find more information about previously funded projects within the field. There is a nice portal which you can search for previously EU-funded projects. In particular, for the risk assessment, quite often you see that you tend to forget to consider non-technological barriers and bottlenecks. And then what Gustav also mentioned is that there is no longer any negotiation or proposals. So this really means that the proposal will be taken as it is, so it has really to be good from the beginning. And then sort of try to pre-register and then submit your proposal in time. So,
thank you, Katrin. Perfect. We saw today that there are quite a few here that are planning to take part in a proposal. if you're an applicant, if I would be an applicant, what could you do for me? What can I expect from you if I call you on tomorrow?
I guess it depends on when the call is closing, but now we still have a couple of weeks. So what I usually do is first try to get a grip on if the idea is really within the topic or the scope of the topic. And there I can as well get some assistance from the project officers at the Commission. But it's quite important that the questions go through the national contact point. So I can help trying to understand if the idea is in line with the topic. If you have like a draft proposal, not like one day before the deadline, I usually read it and give feedback, sort of on my view on how I understand that the proposal meets the evaluation criteria. But everything depends on sort of the time, I would say. The earlier people contact me, the more help you can get. And I think most commonly, I mean, people contact us at a very late stage, and then you really realize that, have you really looked through all the things you should do in the topic? And then it might be quite difficult to integrate new partners at a very late stage. So
And all of these administrative issues, we heard that quite a lot of bureaucracy, and there are pick numbers and participant portals and so on. Whom can I turn to for
well,
help?
if you are like working at the university, I think the people at the grants offices, and I see we have a couple of people from the grants offices here, they are doing a great job in this. I mean, they
Could
know
grants offices people please just try? So
yeah.
I guess
They,
yeah, okay, there, run.
I guess they are even better than we are on those more very hands-on practical issues. But I mean, we try to help with all the questions.
Yeah.
And I also say that we have also a national contact point on legal and financial issues, which could be of help, in particular for example, for companies, if you're a big company. For a smaller size company, we support an SME office, which gives sort of free guidance and can help a lot with these practical issues.
And I think there was some information outside, right, on the SME support.
Yes, there is a roll-up on the free of charge SME support, yes.
Great, thank you very much, Katrin. And by that, I will let you off the stage, and I will ask everyone participating today, thank you very much for being here, sharing your experience and knowledge. And I hope that you will have a great time now planning your proposal, and good luck with that. Thank you for today.